Item 6 is for members' questions. So when I ask the members and supplementaries, please could you make them clear and brief. So, Councillor Osborne.
Question number 1 to the leader, please.
Mr. Mayor, I thank Councillor Osborne for his question. Councillor Osborne asks this question on a regular basis. He asks as though Wandsworth is the only council in the land engaged in balancing its budgets. He asks as though we are the only ones having to deal with the financial mess that his party created for the nation. And he asked this question as though he doesn't know the answer. Well, part 1, the answer is as set out. But I think part B, I'd like to just read it in detail, because I think he might learn a thing or two. It was unfortunate the Council did not qualify for the Council Tax Freeze grant based on the updated guidance from the DCLG. It was not a gamble, but taxpayers can bet on this. Taxpayers can bet on this party looking after their interests as we have done since 1978. However, taxpayers did not lose out, as the Council benefited from additional government grants that were not notified or expected when setting the Council tax for that year. Had the Labour Party budget amendment not to freeze the Council element of the Council tax, but to freeze the overall headline Band D Council tax been adopted, the Council would have in fact been worse off in 2 respects. Firstly, it would not have received the freeze grant as the Government Council's share would have increased, and secondly, it would not have increased the Council tax income base for future years. Find it a bit rich from the Labour Party, who, when last in power nationally, gambled away the country's prosperity, and pretending to be party of financial rectitude when they locally have voted against abstaining enormous amounts of savings put through by this Council.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor. Oh.
How can the leader of the Council, given that the grant from the government was unexpected and unnotified, and we would have got it, whatever we've done, we would have... Actually, has it not come on? Yes. Are there any others on? Oh, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for pointing it out, colleagues. How can the Council leader, given that we would have got that extra grant from the government, unexpected, unnotified, anyway, whatever we'd done, if we'd done nothing, we would have got that approximate £500,000. We should have had an extra £500,000 if we'd frozen the council tax and we got the freeze grant, but we blew it away. Instead of getting a full million, we've only got £500,000 because we didn't get that grant. We foolishly and incompetently gambled it away by the way we set our budget last year.
I think Councillor Osborne doesn't understand that at the time the Council made the decision, the best advice available was that the Council, by taking the decision it did, the freeze grant was available. That is what the advice the Council got not only from its officers, but also from other local authorities who had embarked on a similar process. It was precisely because other authorities had come on that the DCLG changed the rules. At the time of making the decision, we were not gambling, we were acting on the best advice available.
Councillor Heaster.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Supplementary to the leader, I mean, in his reply he refers to this vote against or the abstention in relation to the Labour Party, which amounts to over £29 million of expenditure since 2010. I mean, has he any idea when the Labour Party are going to come forward with proposals to make savings of £29 million for the Council?
I thank Councillor Heaster for his supplementary. I think he's as much in the dark as everybody else is. The party opposite has constantly made the case that they want to be a party of financial rectitude, but in fact have never shown that when it comes to making tough budgetary decisions. In fact, Councillor Caddy asked a very useful question, which is question 49, to which a detailed answer will be available in due course. And the detailed answer, when it is available, will list precisely every single council vote where we have made savings and Labour Party has either abstained or in most majority of the cases, has voted against. Whether it's a saving of £6,000 or it's a saving of £2.5 million, they almost invariably vote against and then talk about them being financially responsible. I'm also reminded of this Labour Party's Low Tax Commission, which I think is kind of 35 years too late, and I sort of wonder how their tasks will be made easier by the way they have dealt with their responsibilities in the council. I guess they might resign before they produce the report.
Councillor.
As you possibly know, there are quite a few council procedures as they're developing, which I find a little bit difficult to come to terms with. But the leader, quoting from an answer to a question that none of us, the rest of us have seen, doesn't particularly matter in this instance. Councillor Govinda always talks nonsense. But in principle, if we're not going to have all the questions at the council meeting, do you not accept that they shouldn't be referred to by insiders with inside information about what the answers might be?
Point taken, Councillor.
Have a dispute about where you quoted from, what implication you took. Can I have a ruling? Can I have a ruling, Madam Mayor, on whether it's acceptable?
Councillor Belton, will you sit down, please? Why? Please. You have asked the question, point of personal explanation, and the leader has said this.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. It wasn't a point of personal explanation, it was a point of order. It was a point of order saying that he should not be referring to things that are unpublished and unknown to the rest of us.
I have been informed that he actually was quoting from question 49. Councillor Osborne.
Question number 2 to the leader, please.
The answer to question 2 is as printed. Can
I ask the leader, categorically, on the record, to deny to this council chamber that in the financial year 2012-13, the Chief Executive's total remuneration was not representative of an increase of 7.6% on the total remuneration he received in the financial year 2011-2012.
Madam Mayor, I have nothing to add to what I said earlier, other than that he did ask earlier that would I work with other local authorities to find ways in which I'd explore savings. And one of the suggestions recently that has come to me is to work with local authorities to see whether neighbouring boroughs and Wandsworth could share the opposition and thereby cut the costs.
Supplementary.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does the leader agree with me that looking at one individual's pay in terms of the leadership of this council is really a silly way of looking at the value that our senior leadership team provides to this council, and that we actually need to consider the whole of the senior leadership team when looking at its value for this council? And when you look at the council's record of delivering the lowest average council tax in the country and very high resident satisfaction scores, that they are clearly providing excellent value for money.
I thank Councillor King for his supplementary. I think, Mr. Mayor, it's been normal practice in this council chamber to be cognizant of the value of service that our officers provide and to abstain from making the kind of giant and party political jokes that the opposition does make. The truth is that this party over 35 years has made a virtue of employing the best officers this council can employ, rewarding them adequately and making sure that they work hard to deliver this council's agenda and value for money services for our residents. Over those 35 years, each and every employee of this council has produced exemplary service to the benefit of the residents of this borough. And if Councillor Osborne would like to know the details of what their contribution has been in terms of the savings that have been delivered and the record of low taxes that's been delivered, then I'm perfectly happy, should the council wish, to produce a paper at the next FAFCROS meeting and perhaps for debate at the next council meeting, detailing the record of achievement over 35 years and the council officers' contribution in making it happen.
Councillor Nadelli.
Sorry to. I'm sorry, but the leader implied that in some way we consider high salaries and a £3 million pot for senior staff to be something laughable.
Councillor.
And I think that's an extremely unfair thing to say. We find it extremely serious, and I hope he does
Cooper,
too.
the question was asked and the answer was given, and that has to be accepted with this question. Councillor Nardelli.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question number 3 to the leader, please.
I thank Councillor Nadelli for a question, and it's very important that we reflect on what we as a council wish to do for our residents. And one of the priorities that I have identified is that we need to ensure that the jobs we are creating in Nine Elms and elsewhere are available to our residents, that our residents are skilled up to take those jobs, supported when they take them, and so that they benefit from the growth that we have created in the north and elsewhere in the borough. Can I just sort of pay tribute to the work match scheme, because this is a relatively new service, and their first event in your ward, Councillor Nadelli, they attracted 400 visitors. The next event, which was in Roehampton Ward, had 700 visitors, and in March I look forward to the York Road Library hosting a similar event where several more hundreds will come. The approach of local residents is supportive of this council's ambition. The approach of those who are creating the jobs in this borough is also supportive of this council. And I think together we will make sure that our residents benefit the most from the opportunities we are creating.
Councillor Nadelli.
Supplementary, Mr. Mayor?
Yep. You want to ask a question? Absolutely.
Thank you. Could I also ask, actually, if we've got any measures in place to help some of our young people reach the full potential and their aspirations?
Thank Councillor Nadelli for a supplementary. Yes, I mean, this is one part of it, but I think as a part of the work match scheme, every young person who goes in to see them is going to be supported to produce a CV if they need to produce a CV. Often a lot of young people don't have those immediate skills. They will be helped to become work ready so that they have got the aptitude for work as well as the right skills to take up the job, and they will be supported through that early weeks and months once they take up perhaps the first job in life, to make sure that that job is sustainable, and therefore get a good record on their CV for future job opportunities. It is an important way to make sure that we connect people's aspirations, their skill set, with the opportunities we are creating.
Second supplementary, Councillor.
Second supplementary. We agree that the work match scheme is very impressive, and with its partners in South Thames and the Job Centre. And the Roehampton event was well attended, well organised, and reached people who the traditional services haven't reached. Will the leader consider expanding the work match scheme further and perhaps look to the council's own work and own recruitment of apprentices?
I thank Councillor Speck for her supplementary. In fact, if she cared to look closely at the stalls taken at both the Patmore event and at the Roehampton event, you will see that the council was well represented there. Council will not only put up the event, but it was represented, its own HR team was there to support. Not only are we encouraging people into world of work, but we are also, with the local NatWest Bank, supporting them into the world of enterprise for those who want to try their hand at creating a business of their own. At the first event at Patmore, we had 23 employers taking a stand. The FE College across the road was represented, as was the university. And there were also people from St. George's Hospital. At the next event, the number of 23 grew to 38, and we hope that it will continue to grow. So that is the way we are going to grow work match. More people showing what they can do for our young people and making sure that the events are as successful as the last one, if not more successful than the last one.
Madam Mayor, question 4 to the Leader.
Carpenter for his question, and I think he'd see that the net cost of Brightside, because the Brightside team are a creative team, not only in what they put together, but in the way they find sponsorship and advertising to cover costs. So the net cost is £54,000, which equates to 7 pence per household. I would say a heck of a lot cheaper than the 50p the newsagents ask you to pay for a copy of Wandsworth Guardian.
That's a very interesting answer, because it's actually somewhat different to the answer I got from Mr. Buss when I asked him the same question. And the difference seems to be because you've got some internal costs you're counting as costs when they're just moving them from one pocket to another. Can you confirm that the net cash cost is 100,000, more than enough to pay to make every Wandsworth employee a London Living Wage employee?
I'm not sure whether I understand Councillor Carpenter's question, because it was one of those detailed accountant type of questions, which perhaps is best answered by a one-to-one between him and some accountant in the Director of Finance's team. They can spend a useful afternoon tick-tacking on methodology of counting shekels. What I do know is the Brightside is 7 pence per household. What I do know is Brightside reaches every household in the borough, unlike the Wandsworth Guardian. What I do know is it's cheaper to advertise in Brightside than it is to advertise in Wandsworth Guardian, and to actually cease to do the Brightside will not elicit the savings that Councillor Carpenter alludes to, because we still have a duty to inform our residents of various things this council does, and that duty would have to be discharged by buying expensive advertising in a failing newspaper that doesn't reach every household in the borough. I do think that is not value for money. Brightside provides value for money, and I know from residents' feedback they value that publication more than anything else that they receive locally through free circulation.
Second supplemental, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I congratulate the Leader on using the word creative about the team? I find many of the stories very creative indeed. So creative as they bear little relationship to what I know to have been going on in committee meetings and council meetings. And if he wants a case in point, it's the write-up of the overwhelming welcome from tenants and leaders in their thousands about the rent freeze. I was actually at the meeting. One tenant leader mentioned it, and she mentioned what a cynical action in an election year. I think she was about right. So I do congratulate the Leader on the word creative.
Well, I have to say, Councillor Belton always comes to the point in an obtuse kind of way, because the one person at the committee meeting was not the sum total of the people this council engaged with when it announced the rent freeze. And if he thinks that we relied on that one person's feedback in order to make the decision, he's got another thing coming. He's obviously creative in his own question too.
Councillor McNaught-Davies.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question 5 to the Leader, please.
I thank Councillor McNaught-Davies for his question, and he's quite right to draw attention to this particular proposal, because this proposal builds on other proposals we have in the past considered to meet the growing demand for primary school places in the borough. This proposal not only meets that demand but provides choice and diversity and adds to our stock of good and well-performing schools in the borough. Our schools are well regarded for not only their high standards but also the choice and diversity they offer, and the school will be a welcome addition to that stable.
Councillor McNaught-Davies.
Supplementary. Thank you, Madam Mayor. In fact, as you will know, the school is generally welcomed in the area and very much needed to deal with the rise in birth rate. However, there have been some objections, mostly due to the parking arrangements. Will the Leader agree with me that further consultation is needed to deal with these?
I thank Councillor McNaught-Davies for his supplementary. My experience when I was the chairman of Planning Applications Committee was that it was always useful to have a problem-solving, fact-finding meeting with concerned residents when there was something that either the council proposed or was a major proposal in the area. And I'm perfectly willing to talk to Councillor Cuff as chairman of Planning Applications Committee to make his time available for a meeting that perhaps the Earlsfield councillors could facilitate between the local residents who have some concerns about these proposals and see whether we cannot find ways in which we can either meet their concerns or explain more fully the basis of the application. I feel that such a meeting would be constructive and would allay their fears.
Can I ask the leader, is he aware that a number of the residents locally feel that they have been seriously shortchanged on the consultation process, and in particular that they feel that they were denied an opportunity to make a proper presentation to the committee, the Finance and Corporate Resources Committee, where this item was discussed, because they had never really been given proper advice on how to do so? And will he undertake, as part of the undertaking he makes to Councillor McNaught-Davis, to also work with me to make sure that they get an opportunity to make some sort of representation at further discussions in this council?
I'm staggered, actually, at that supplementary, because whilst I don't attend OSC meetings, I know that Councillor Osborne does. However, I did have a readout of that particular OSC meeting. And my readout was that the item regarding Athledean School, the school proposal on Athledean site, was taken first in the agenda because the committee were aware that there were residents wanting to hear the debate in the gallery. The chairman of the OSC invited the opposition member to make a contribution to this, and I believe there was none or very minor contribution. I understand that the people in the gallery were completely flummoxed as to what had happened, because within a very short time the vote was taken and the item was approved. I don't think the residents needed to be told how to represent themselves. I think the members of the opposition needed to be told how to represent their residents. I feel very sorry for the residents to have been deeply let down by a party who thinks that they are deeply concerned. And that's why I'm very hopeful that the commitment that I've given to Councillor McNaught-Davis will get together in a very constructive dialogue, the residents and the council and the appropriate other departments, if necessary, to find a solution to the issues that they are concerned about, and perhaps once they have had the full facts, unvarnished facts explained to them, they might in fact find that they are on the same page as us.
Councillor Hogg, separate question.
Question 6 to the leader.
I'm sorry, I've been told we're nearly to time, but Councillor Hogg, if you'd like to have your question. Yeah, sorry about that.
Question 6 of the leader.
I thank Councillor Hogg for his question. Again, I'm sort of slightly unsure whether the Labour Party is welcome, as Councillor Hogg claims, is as wholehearted as he suggests. And perhaps at some point Councillor Ellis might put him right as to what the wider understanding of the opposition's reaction to it is. Our core message in the freeze that has been announced for the forthcoming year is that this council provides value for money in all its activities, and there is no reason why a council tenant should not benefit from this council's expert management of their affairs. Because we have managed them so expertly and so well, we are able to give them a rent freeze. I can't see why the party opposite should consider it a cynical gamble to try for an election. It is quite right that when we identify that there are savings that have been accrued and that they're there, we should pass them at the first opportunity to residents, and that's what's happening here.
Supplementary. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the leader risks sounding a bit eccentric on this issue. We know £1.8 million was recently saved in job cuts in the housing department, and now £1.8 million is handed out in pre-election rent cuts, and we're to believe this is just a big coincidence. I mean, I think people will imagine there is some link, particularly when independent analysis has shown over the past 20 years the council increases rents by half the government guideline in the year before council elections and by more than twice the government guideline in the year after elections. So I guess my question is, can the leader please try to keep a straight face when he tells the council that Wandsworth does not fix rents by elections?
If you can see a face as straight as mine from where you are, it is as straight as it ever will be. We do not fix rents in election years. And your independent analysis is a bit independent like your low tax commission. I don't have any sympathy or confidence in that analysis. What I do know is that we have always passed the savings when identified to the department. And of course what Councillor Hogg also fails to understand is that on one hand there is all this sort of fuss and bother about how many senior officers you have and how much you pay them and are they overpaid and should you have them and so on. And when you take the right decision to shrink the high-paid officer cadre, they then say, oh, well, we don't like that one, but we like that one. We don't like that one, but we like that one. Make up your mind. If you believe in providing residents with an efficient council, one that actually tackles costs all the time in every area, then vote for us, our approach. Otherwise, you can keep quiet.
Second supplemental. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would the leader confirm that our hands have been tied for the last decade or so by the new Labour rent restructuring programme, where Two Jags Prescott would launch formula rents, guideline rents, abstract rents, combined rents, hypothecated rents, and any other rent he could think of, purely as a means of shoving money up to Hull and further north than that. We were told how much rent to set. That's why we have the second highest rent in the country. And now that we're free of the tyranny and the yoke of the housing revenue account and the subsidy system, we're able to set our own rents, and that's why we've frozen them at last.
I thank Councillor Knowles for his supplementary, and it's the most eloquent defence of localism, and I think he's absolutely right. We are free to give our residents the service that they want, and we can deliver at a price that they can afford, and I think this is the proof of it.
The time for questions to the leader is now over.